The National Guard vehicle has just driven through the island, announcing that soon the bridge, the only bridge to the island, will be closed in just a couple of hours. A hotel owner looks around at all the windows that have not been boarded up yet. And the hurricane winds and the rains are beginning to pick up. And the owner can see the stress on all of his staff's faces as they frantically try to get those boards up. The work is too much, and Mother Nature is making it even more demanding. So frantically, the owner of the hotel gets on his bicycle and he heads to where a long line sits and waits to get over the bridge. And he begins to knock on windows, asking anyone to pull out of line and to come help him get his hotel secure. And finally one, and then another, and then a third pull out of their line, and they follow this man on his bicycle back to his business. And as they pull up, they can see the joy on the faces of the staff members who are relieved to have greater support. You see, they had just survived the wrath of one hurricane, and they knew what the damage could be. Finally, they get all the boards up, and the hotel is as secure as it can be. And then the hotel owner goes to the cash register and takes all the money out that is in there and comes and stands before all the faces who have helped secure his building, and he divides it out evenly amongst those faces. And then the National Guard passes by again and says, if you're going to leave, now is the time. 15 minutes, the bridge will close. And they get into their vehicles and they pull away. But little do they know that they're all heading to the same shelter that's farther inland in the county, where they'll stay a couple of days together. It will be their sanctuary from the storm. Because they arrived at the same time, their cots would be set up beside each other. Their families would share that space with one another, and they would get a chance to become friends, become more than just a face they have seen on this island. They'll have meals. They'll laugh. They'll play cards and share in board games. They'll learn about each other. And do you think that evenly dividing up the wages that they received ever came up in conversation? The story of the landowner in today's gospel likely happened in late September in Palestine as the grape harvest ripened. Very soon the rains would come down, and if the harvest was not ingathered before the rains broke, it would all be ruined. So there was a frantic race to get it done. Yet human judgment is exposed in the hearts of those earliest workers today in Matthew's gospel. I should get paid first. I should get paid more. I should get. Jesus shares the story to emphasize the generosity of God is God's alone. The generosity of God is never in human control, for that generosity is what makes grace. And I'm not talking about a grace period as we use in our world, where eventually everything will become fair. Eventually, all those who have worked harder will get more. For grace is God. Grace is not measured in work or time or money. Grace is good. Grace is holy. Thanks to my friend Judy, I've been working through a book called The Power of Vulnerability by Brene Brown this last month. And there's this section in the book that struck a chord with me. It talks about the importance of play and the importance of creativity. Who here participates in some type of activity that you would label as play? Whether it's to go out and enjoy a golf game, or to sit around and to play a board game or a round of bridge, or just simply find time to hang out with another person. You see, we do things that bring us joy that doesn't have any value system placed on it. And when we do that, we're welcoming the possibility of God's grace to come into our lives as we simply take pleasure in joy. It might be fair to say that if joy is missing in one's life, then it's no wonder that we might question whether God cares about us or God cares about anyone. We constantly find ourselves saying whether life is fair. For me, I recognize the joy in laughter, thought-provoking conversation, even in opportunities of contest. Brene reminds us that contest is very different than competition. Contest allows us to be part of play, where we're encouraged to bring our very best ability into this activity that we share with another person, not for the purpose of winning, but for the purpose of enjoyment. Unfortunately, I see, as many others, that technology is beginning to blur the lines. You see, we can play golf on our Wii, we can play chess on our iPhone, we can go play bridge on the computer. And we're playing against a machine where competition can seep in since there's no physical connection with another being. And whether we know it or not, the joy of that activity can be lost. And research is showing us that those who find their release in play with technology without engagement in another person's presence, they play longer and longer than they would with a person. They're trying to fill a void. Their mind and their heart and body is telling them this is a false play. It's a hole. It's not giving you joy. When I was a child, I remember many times when I missed the opportunity to go out and to play because I had not done the work I needed to do, homework or chores. And it not only was disappointing for me to have to tell my friend who would come to the door and ask me to come out and play, but also the disappointment on their face as well. And yet we can fast forward into adulthood and find ourselves still being placed in this trap. I cannot go and play golf with you today, not because I have a deadline, but because I want to work harder than anyone else. I want to be the only person in there on Saturday or Sunday morning so that I can impress my boss, and maybe I will get more because I deserve to get more if I work harder than others. You see, competition leads to comparing. It leads to critique. It leads to a concern within us about what is being placed in the hands of our neighbors as compared to our own hands. How does our friends, our partners, our children feel when work wins over time together. Yes, sometimes we have to work overtime to get the hotel boarded up, the harvest ingathered, and we make those sacrifices during those unexpected storms. Yet if play is sacrificed over and over again, then we simply see joy as a luxury that we do not deserve to obtain. And grace loses the chance to enter into our day. Can I take myself out of that line of critique, of competition, of comparing? And instead to say, I'm glad that you got paid today so that you could feed your family. I'm glad that I was able to get paid today so I can feed mine. Now let's go out tomorrow and to celebrate with a chance of being together. Be grateful that we can provide in those basic necessities of life, so that then we can go out and to welcome and play. For in such joy we can find sanctuary for the storms of our daily lives. We can find God by being in the company of others. Amen.